Hey there, Python pioneers, and welcome to another episode. In this episode, we are really going to dive into how to automate the boring stuff. We're actually going to learn how you can automate your mouse and keyboard and pretty much do anything you want on your computer. So, there's this thing inside of Python called PyAutoGUI, and what it does is it will allow you to control the mouse and keyboard. So as I'm talking right now, a program that I wrote is drawing boxes in Paint. And at first glance, that seems pretty straightforward. But you have to realize that also my program opened Paint. And think about the actions that my computer is taking right now. I'm clicking, dragging, and moving around to various spots on the screen. That's pretty awesome. So if you try to think for a second about some of the different things that you might want to uh, do you ever need to click with your mouse? Right? All the time. Um, and maybe, like we looked at APIs in the last episode, but sometimes things that you interact with don't have APIs, right? Maybe it's an app that's installed on your desktop, or maybe it's something else you want to do on your computer that you just can't use an API to take advantage of. Now, I'm not specifically mentioning websites because there's a different thing you might try to do with web scraping, but this is more all around. I wouldn't say this is necessarily for navigating the web, but when you have specific tasks you want to take care of on your computer, this is a good tool in the toolbox. The one thing you have to keep in mind as we dive into this episode, with automating your GUI, anytime you're controlling your mouse and keyboard, you do always run the chance of writing a bad program, right? That sends your mouse flying off to the wrong part of the screen or clicking on things it shouldn't. And you have to keep in mind that while this is happening, you can't control it. So when you're first testing out programs, make sure you put some delays in there. Maybe some times where your program goes to sleep so that you have a chance to kill the program. We're going to be using the Mu editor, so you could go press stop. You can also move your mouse up to the top corner. That will also kill the program. It's a safe zone built into PyAutoGUI. So let's dive in and let's take a look at how do we do this. All right, so I've got it pulled up here. This is the documentation for PyAutoGUI. And now let's break down the name of this real quick. Py stands for Python. Auto, automation, auto, could be however you want to look at that one. And GUI, I wanted to break that one down for you. If you've never heard that word before, some people say GUI, some people say GUI. It stands for Graphical User Interface. And basically, all it is everything that you interface with when you use your computer. When we've been writing Python programs so far, everything was in the terminal, right? That is the CLI, that's the command line interface. So the GUI, or the graphical user interface, is the nice one with the images and things you can click on and things like that. So that's what we're talking about, how to automate the graphical user interface. How do I click and how do I send message? I could send messages like alert boxes that pop up, like warning, you are studying for too long. Click OK to accept. Like you can pop that up to PyAutomate GUI. You could click to open applications. You can send text like you're typing on your keyboard. You can send hotkeys. So if you go to PyAutoGUI documentation, I would recommend just Googling that. The URL is pyautoGUI.readthedocs.io, but just Google PyAutoGUI documentation and you'll get here. And there's some instructions for installing PyAutoGUI. If you have Mu set up, all you have to do is go down and watch one of my previous videos on how to install a third-party module. It'll set right up inside of Mu, no problem. So I just wanted to show you the documentation here. There's a couple things on the side. They actually do show you this demo as well with the boxes being drawn. And if you go to the cheat sheet, it kind of walks you through some of the things you can do. So once you've installed it, you've got to import PyAutoGUI naturally. And there's a couple useful things you can do. So you can say PyAutoGUI.position to get the current X and Y position of your mouse. So your screen's broken down into an X and Y grid, starting from the top left corner. So top left is 0, 0. So up here, follow the mouse up here to the top left is 0, 0. And as you move to the right, the x-axis increases. And as you move down, the y-axis increases. It's a little counterintuitive. You would think that 0, 0 would be bottom left, but it's top left is where you start. So just keep that in mind. But you can use the position member function or class function, whatever you want to call it. You can use this function that's part of the module. You don't have to have an instance of the class created to figure out what the current X and Y of AutoGUI is, or of your mouse is. And you can use size to get the current screen resolution. So right off the bat, that's something to point out. When you're writing these kinds of automations, you want to make sure you don't change your screen resolution because, these things will break. It's kind of a manual way of doing things, but sometimes you have to, maybe you're trying to do something like there's a game you're trying to play and you want to play the game and try to create some kind of bot, I don't know, in a game that allows bots. Or there's some old application you want to use and there's a use case for this, but just make sure you don't change your resolution, because if you do, then you have to go back and fix all the pixel choices that you made, all the X and Y locations you picked. Let's see, failsafe is talking about you really don't want to turn failsafe off. That's what I was telling you about earlier, where you can go up in the top corner and prevent or you can stop the program. So if you ever move your mouse up in the top corner, it'll stop, just in case you coded something wrong and it's like randomly sending emails out or something crazy, deleting files, I don't know, depending on what you were doing. So some of the mouse functions, you can use the move to function. Hopefully let me zoom this in actually, probably a little bit easier to see. There we go. Yeah, it looks better. Okay, so you've got the move to function that will move your mouse to a location. And the cool thing is you can give it this duration parameter. It's not required. You could just leave that off. But if you remember, if you ever have an equal sign, it's not a required parameter, but because it's setting the default. But you can set the duration in the call to move to slowly move the mouse over somewhere else instead of just immediately jumping around real quick. You can actually make it move there slowly. So if you were trying to create a bot that, for example, looked more human, maybe you would generate a random number, and when you move the mouse to a certain location, you would move for a duration of a random period of time, between 0.0 or maybe like 3 milliseconds and 10 milliseconds or something. So it's random every time. And then move relative is kind of cool. So instead of having to know exactly the pixels on the screen you want to move to, because that can be kind of difficult, right? You have to figure out what the pixels are. Once you've got the mouse at the first place you want it, you can move relative to that position. So you can basically just say, hey, move to the right 50 pixels, move to the left 50 pixels. Uh, yeah, it's same thing, number of seconds there, pretty cool. Drag to is useful. So drag to is what we were using. Well, we're using drag relative actually, but to draw the box, because dragging is holding down the left mouse button and then dragging, right? So if you needed to drag for some reason, click just clicks like you would expect it to. You can send a double click if you need to and give an interval between the number of clicks and choose the button too. So if you need left, middle, or right, depending on what you're trying to do, pretty neat. They also have functions to make it a little bit more readable if you don't want to add all these parameters in. They do have right, middle, double, and triple click just as functions themselves you can call. You can scroll, move the mouse up or down, or sorry, the button down. So if for some reason you need to hold the mouse button down for an extended period of time, or something to that effect, like basically you'll mouse down, you'll send the mouse down function, and then until you call mouse up, then the button is held down. So kind of cool. It's basically you're able to break out, you could use mouse down and then move to or drag to, no, move to. So mouse down and move to is the same as just drag to, right? If you did with the left button, and then you just mouse up when you get to the end after you've moved the mouse to where you want it. Pretty cool. So if you wanted to write, now this is something that's interesting. So they have type write, and actually they don't even show you write, but there's another function called write. And if you ever use that, just the PYAUTOGUI.write, it sends the whole thing you typed all at once. Might not be what you want to happen. So type write is again something that could make it look more like a human typing. So when you type write, you put all the characters you want to write, and then again you could do a random number of seconds or milliseconds between the keys so that it looks more like a person typing rather than just like everything getting dumped on the screen all at once. So that's pretty cool. Message box function. This is the piece of PyAutoGUI where you can make alerts pop up on the screen. So if you wanted to display something with an OK button, it's an alert. OK or cancel is confirm. And then prompt lets you just type whatever you want, and then they have to press OK. Or lets the user type whatever they want, sorry. So pretty neat. There is a screenshot function. So if you wanted to take a screenshot, then you could take a screenshot throughout periods of your program to then go and try to extract information from that screenshot. There's a cool thing you can do. I've had mixed results, so you'll have to try it for yourself and see. But there's a really interesting feature they have called locate on screen. And basically what it does is you could go in advance, right? Let's say you have an application and the button you want to click always moves around, or maybe a game and on the screen there's monsters that appear in random places. Well, if the monsters always look the same, then maybe you can they have to literally look always exactly the same. This is why I was saying you get mixed results. But a button or a monster or something that you're trying to click on the screen, you could take a screenshot of that thing that you want to find, and all you have to do is call PyAutoGUI.locate on screen and send it or give it a the image you want to look for. And if it finds it on the screen, it will return the left top, width, and height. So the left is the x-axis, the top is the y, and the width and height in pixels. So it'll find that for you on the screen and give you those numbers. It's like, cool, what do I do with that? You can send a click from there, right? You can tell PYAUTOGUI, hey, go click at this X and this Y. And you know how the width of it too, so you could even, if you need to click on a certain spot, you could tell it where to click. Locate all on screen will give you a list of all the things that match that image. So if there was more than one, you'll get all of them. So usually what you want to do with that is wrap it in list, because it returns a generator. So if we haven't really talked about generators that much, but it doesn't matter. Just know that when you call this, wrap it in list, and you'll have a list of all these values. They have a function called locate center on screen. So then you could find the XY coordinates of the middle of wherever that image was found. So if you just want to click on the middle, you could use that. Pretty neat. And you might notice too, it says the function returns none if the image couldn't be found on the screen, but you might also, I've had instances where it does return an error if it can't find anything, so you might have to wrap it and then try accept. You'll have to play around with that. But so PYAUTOGUI.read to docs, the cheat sheet is what we just went through. They've got breakdowns on everything else for mouse control, keyboard control, message box functions, screenshot functions. It's a really cool tool. Can't recommend it enough. Definitely recommend taking some time, play with this one, and let me know what you're able to come up with, because this is a really cool tool that really, it's up to you and your imagination. What are you able to do with this? Can you draw a cool picture? Can you have randomly generated art? Can you automate something that maybe you have to do every day when you get into work? And if you just had PyAutomate GUI, then you could maybe make your life a lot easier at work. There's a lot of opportunity here to do cool stuff. So I'd love to know what you come up with. But until next time, thank you.